What up, YouTube? Oh, yo, we're just going into it. I just had a quick pre-break. We talked about some changes that happened on Discord, and we're back. Yo, if you're liking some of the conversations that we're having, hit that like button, subscribe, let me know what's up. We're just gonna get into it. I think you guys already know. Let's just go. Winter 366 is here. Let's go. The vine. Yes, Finfran. Ooh, ooh. I know, my boy's just like. Thorko's just a lot more like it. Oh, dude, this is my good shirt, bro. This is my going out shirt. Hold ass environment with snow, yeah.
あいつも白状だな。元はヤルル。高貴な出だと聞いてる。ヤルルなのはヘルガの血筋だ。トールズは剣の腕で成り上がったのさ。何？聞きたい？聞きたい？聞きたかったらな、もう少し俺を楽しませることだぜ。なあ、トルフィン。楽しませてやってもいいけどな。口が聞ける。Rama Fur, thanks so much for the follow. I appreciate it. My dude didn't even give a fuck. He's just like, alright, I'm just gonna kill this person, dude. He's already there. But straight up, okay, if you're fighting this guy on a one-on-one, this is actually really hype. I would be like, hey, yo, Finfran, if I take you down, would you let me and, like, Masters go free, or me and Anne go free? You know, like, make sure that, you know, you tell your people. Oh. トールズは俺より強かった。自分がまさしくトールズの子だと証明してみせろ。トルフィン。I know the respect, dude. Oh, here we go, guys. If you kill, do people die when they were killed? Like, do people? You should ask that too. No one. Like, doesn't their legacy still live on in some way, shape, or form? Right? Like, what does it mean for someone to quite literally have their legacy or existence? Wait. For people die? Yeah, like. PSA, people die when they are killed. I meant like legacies or stories or whatnot, because that's sort of how we know a lot about like the past, right? Some of the stories, some of the evidence that's been thrown out there, even though some of it might be a little wrong, you know, from time to time. But like, it's just a general concept of that. People die twice. One when your physical body, and next is when the last person spoke your name. Just so you know, you do permanently, in fact, die when you are killed. No takebacks. Will it be archived like Discord? You mean Yeah, at some point, right? No, the reason why I'm curious is because even, for example, in some cultures, if we're gonna go with like Day of the Dead, right? It's like technically, as long as you're still remembered, you're still able to go and come back from that place, right? So it's like some sort of legacy or some sort of story or even like family unit is still telling the story of you or remembering either a picture or your aspect in some way, shape, or form. So then, are like do you die when you are killed? Do people die when they reincarnate? Sorry, that's just gonna get into a huge moralistic, this philosophical debate about what it means for meaning, how we live off meaning, what the legacy means, and so on and so forth. Let's just get our cat jams and Doritos ready. Well, bro.
バカが君、死にに戻ってきやがって。王子はどうなってやがる。
近くで戦の声がする。
Bro, you gotta start stepping up. You gotta start stepping up, brother. You gotta fly. You gotta take that first step.
静かにしてくれ。目を開けたくないんだ。このまま寝ていたい。このままずっと。
殿下、クヌート殿下。
ラグナル、お前。
Did he just force ghost himself there? Or is this just like a dream that he's like having? Because if he force ghosted himself there, that's pretty badass. But if this is a dream he's having, then clearly his attachment to him was quite significant and his brain is doing this as a reality check. No, Ed. He's an empath. His soul came back. Got a dip. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate you, Masters. Have a good night. Be safe, man. I appreciate you a lot. Yeah, that's why I'm like, what? Whoa, wait a minute. That's a lot to take in. That's a lot to take in, brother.
生きて。これは夢なのだな、ラグナル。
はい、お別れを申し上げに参りました。
行くのか、僕を残して。僕一人でこんな世界で生きてゆけというのか。生きてゆけると思うのか。
Ragnar didn't die.
Okay, I'm not a wizard, man. Ragnar didn't die when he was killed. Gotta call Witcher. That's why I was like, wait a minute. The conversation we had previously was literally just for like Thorfinn and Thorkel, but I did want to go ahead and say this out there. Like, it's interesting to note that like cross-generationally and cross-culturally, a lot of people have similar dreams, visions, whatever. It might be because of attachment, working through trauma or whatever, of like loved ones coming to say goodbye or whatever, right? That's why I'm like, it's interesting how the brain, through a psychological perspective, I'm not going to go into a spiritual perspective, like the brain is able to go ahead and show scenarios or show aspects like this for you to be able to process the pain or process sort of grief or process saying goodbye or make yourself come to a closure, you know? And it would mean the same thematically. Yeah. Jung and his archetypes. Yeah, I mean, the only conclusion is the soul is real. Yeah, Dark Thug. Philosophical Dark Thug here.
あなた様の教育係として失格でした。あなた様をヤルルとしてではなく、ごく普通の、それこそ農民が我が子を育てるがごとくにしてまいりました。
Bruh.
それが陛下のお望みではないと知りつつ、お許しください。
You were that kid's father,
何がい
dude.
けないのだ。お前は父王陛下より僕自身の望みを汲んでくれた。王家になど生まれたくなかった。お前の子に僕がお前の子に生まれていたらどんなによかったかと。
Aww.
殿下、嬉しゅうございます。
Bruh.
殿下、
行かないで。お前が好きなんだ。
Yeah. Yeah.
失って知ることがございます。あなた様はすでにお気づきでしょう。
ラグナル、
私めのことは夢でございます。
待て。
もはや目覚める時が来たのです。
いやだ、ラグナル、戻れ。戻れ。
You gotta step up, dude. That's a big aspect there. And through that, I think a big thing like that is, hey, someone can carry the name of your mother or your father, but that doesn't make them family. And being straight up with you. A lot of people give him real big importance to those titles, but if they're not involved in your life, you know, family is just a lot more than just blood, and you're able to go out and pick your family as an adult. You know, if you have friends that you consider family, then they're your family. You know, and that's huge. And I think in situations like this where clearly this death is traumatic for him, yeah, there's going to be a lot of stepping up, a lot of different steps that he might need to take for growth. And one of them is starting to take charge, not be afraid to get his hands dirty in a situation where everyone already has, like, you know, their hands in the cookie jar. He literally raised him from birth, so he's definitely more family, more real than his father. True, Anne. True, absolutely. That's why I'm like, ooh. 殿下。
ラグナル。
My dude just raged. Barbarian rage.
お体、痛みはございませんか。あの者たちは殿下を得ようと争っているのです。
Yeah.
あなたは勝者の者。
Well, my thing is, imagine if he actually starts talking like a leader, right? He might have more of a chance of people actually recognizing him. and actually doing what needs to be done, but he needs to step up and lay down his boundaries and whatnot. Like, he still can carry a position of power in some way, shape, or form. It's up to him to be able to go ahead and lead. It's up to him to be able to go ahead and take those steps. It's up to him to be able to go do certain things. Because the winner is going to take you, but it's like, what do you want to do? What are the options for yourself? Do you want to lead men, or do you want to like be led? Because ultimately, that's what's going to happen. If someone is placed as say like a retainer, or someone that's able to go ahead and like lead you or whatever, they're going to take advantage of you. They're going to try and manipulate you. So what are you going to do? Are you going to take a step? Yeah, or not.
のになります。
神父であろうそなた。
That's not his
争い
job.
を止めるのか。
止めようがありますか。死にたいものは死なせてやればよいのです。
夢を見た。ラグナルの夢だ。
Bruh, literally
別
picking
れ
him
を
up.
告げられた。死んでまで律儀な男だ。
That was a demon.
も
the
う
the
この
priest just
地上
starts
に
throwing out random things.
私を愛してくれる者はいなくなった。
それは大いなる悟りです。だが惜しい。ラグナル殿のあなたへの思いは愛ですか。彼はあなたの安全のために62人の善良な村人を見殺しにした。殿下、愛とは何ですか。
Bruh.
しかしよ、手応えなかったな、こいつら。つい奴らにお目にかかるのは難しいよ。いつまで経ってもバルハラに行けやしねえ。
They're still fighting?
続いてんのか。
Fuck.
まさか秒殺だろ。ならなんであんなに盛り上がってんだよ。
Fuck.
俺見てくるわ。なあ俺も。おいおいどうなってんだよ。やっちめ大将てめえこそ。いけんな。マジかよ。あの大将がやられっぱなしじゃねえか。あんな小僧に。いいぞトルフィン。お前にかなうやつは俺の手下に5人といないだろう。
前と。
Oh fuck, dude. No. It's that Dragon Ball Z moment. He ripped off his shirt, you run. Even as a therapist, yo, if someone rips off their shirt, you run, dude. That's how you know he's about to do the spirit bomb. You just take a couple steps, dude. You book it, dude. You book it. Like, don't even He's getting serious.
手足の剣を狙うのは有
A
効だ。
Kimbo time.
ロンドンでは急所狙いで踏み込んで痛い目を見た。
Ah.
とどめは奴の動きを止めてからだ。
だがな、確かに強いが、お前の剣はなんかこう普通って感じ。戦士として完成するには何かが足りない。
ならそいつ相手にコテンパンのてめえは何なんだよ。
そうさ、俺にも足りない。トールズのこのお前からならそれを学べると思ってたんだが。なあ、トルフィンよ。お前はどう思う？本当の戦士ってなんだ？
It's interesting how all of them have their own definition as to what they're searching for. Like, what does it mean to find love? Or what does it mean to feel love? What does it mean to be a true warrior? What, like, all of these questions that, like, are so individualized yet specific in this world is, like, mind-boggling to me. He's probably not weighed down a lot. Yeah, I don't like these odds. What is a true warrior? I think the answer is the
だ
same.
と。ラグナルは私を愛していなかったというのか。
はい。
ならば問うのは私の方だ。 ラグナルに愛がないのなら、正しく愛を体現できる者はどこにいるのだ。
そこにいますよ。ほら。彼は死んで、どんな聖者よりも美しくなった。愛そのものと言っていい。
Willing to die for a cause or
彼は
something?
もはや憎むことも奪うこともしません。彼はこのままここに打ち捨てられ、
ISP.
その肉を獣や虫に惜しみなく与えるでしょう。雨風にさらされるがまま、それで一言半句の文句も言いません。
Bruh.
死は人間を完成させるのです。
くそ。
わからんか。まあ気にすんなよ。そんなには期待してなかった。
姑息な手よ。愛の本質が死だというのか。
はい。
ならば親が子を、夫婦が互いを、ラグナルが私を大切に思う気持ちは一体何だ。
差別です。
Bro, it's attachment. It's love. It's a form of love, dude. Modern day, we now have different forms of love. Fatuous love, compassionate love, you know. We can go over it at another time, but not necessarily. It's interesting that the philosophical outlooks of this, though. If you die, that's love, bro. Yeah, I know. It's old Christian philosophy. Yeah, that's why I'm like, People leave behind thoughts of big that can be argued. When you attach to something, you prefer one thing over the other, thus discrimination. Here's the thing, though, right? Because you're always attached, no matter what. Even in death, some person is attached to you. You know, if you have people to be attached to you, that is. People change when they are dying. Do people die when they are killed? For example, wouldn't it be discrimination towards others with the fact that, like, he loves his theology so much that he might look down on others in that same shape, way, or form? You know? And you can go on and so on and so forth.
王にへつらい奴隷に鞭打つことと大して変わりません。
Is there a spectrum for death, Dutchby?
ラグナル殿にとって王子殿下は
True.
他の誰よりも大切な人だったんです。おそらく彼自身の命よりも彼のあなたに対する心弱い思いは差別です。
そうか。分かってきた。まるで霧が晴れていくようだ。
あれ？
だもう見切られてるぞ。
Oh, good cut. Notice the way he's actually using it is like the way a good fighter would use daggers. Like, he's actually using it correctly. You know, because a lot of shows get it wrong where they're like pointing up forward like this, and it's like, all right, that's not really going to get you anything. Where as opposed to like actually having balance or even being able to go and have it down or pointing it to the side, you know, that's interesting. His like fighting styles a little different. You can have one like this and another one like that.
分かってきた。この雪が愛なのだな。
そうです。
あの空が、あの太陽が、吹きゆく風が、木々が、山々が、 なのになんということだ。世界が
Revert to the old
神の御業
ways.
がこんなにも美しいというのに
Revert to the old ways.
人間の心には愛がないのか。
What this does, I feel like this is, yeah, this is like the survival mechanism for people during this period in time, right? Because after all, you do need to be a little bit harsher about situations in order to live in a society like this, in an environment like this, because clearly his old self wouldn't be able to survive in this environment, right? Because at the end of the day, you know what this creates? Emotionally cold and distant people that aren't able to go out and open up and share certain aspects of themselves. Individuals like this who are like brought down, you know, I don't know how to put it, morally, physically, spiritually, into a dogma of thinking, which is actually quite funny. Recent staffing, and just in case I had a staffing on and whatnot, where it's kind of similar. There is no love, so therefore they justified domestic abuse. If that person's trying to get this person closer to God. It's like, what the like, there are individuals who go to these lengths in situations like this, right? Where all of a sudden, like, you know, because of, you know, certain moralistic or spiritualistic outlooks in certain periods of times, they will shut down the empathetic nature or stop trying to develop empathy in general, and believe that like some sort of views that they have is the views that everyone else must have as well, which ends up creating a circle of violence and a hatred and even dismissal. Because at the end of the day, what is good enough if nothing's good? What is love? What can you appreciate? What can you genuinely love if nothing is love? If the only thing that is love is death, then what if everything you create is just nonsense? You know, what sense of purpose do you have continuing on forward? And it's been interesting observing this and seeing this thought process, because yes, at least in this hate man, love nature and God, whereas opposed to now where it's like love man, love nature, you know, so on and so forth. What are we watching? We're watching Vinland Saga, and we're talking about what it means. What is love? For example, if I were to ask you guys, what is love for you guys, genuinely? For example, everyone has a different feeling for love, right? Love can be anything. This, baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Is it understanding for you? Is it a hug? Is physical affection love for you? Is it romantic affection for you? Is it being heard and understood for you? Is it having someone there in the cold nights where you thought you'd lost yourself, and someone being there and saying like, no, I'm here with you? What is love for you? What does love look like? In terms of having friends, relationships, you know, what normal people understand is indeed a preference, which can be considered a prejudice, discrimination on the range to go for. See, I'm not talking about the philosophical aspect of this. I'm talking about the psychological aspects of quite literally having a train of thought like this, which you end up with individuals who go into pretty rough states, you know, because there's a difference between the philosophy of like there is no love, right, versus the psychology of seeing someone say that or someone genuinely believe that, and seeing the isolationist, the physical anger, like all of these things start manifesting, and seeing like, wait a minute, that is, yeah, getting and giving attention for understanding each other for me. Yeah, winner. Straight up. Love for me is care, and is showing that you care about something or someone. Yeah? And that's the thing, is like we all have different definitions of what love means to us right now. you know? Because I bet you anything, 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, if we were to ask the same question, we'd probably give more defined answers as well. Because as we change our definitions as to what love is, comes to us, right? It changes along with the tides. Because the only thing that is constant is the times. You know, the times will always be changing. So, it's interesting. It's interesting that that's like, I don't know. Because one of the, as I said, you have the philosophical debate that people can get into, and I'm not going to touch that. What I am going to touch is the ramifications of someone going into an environment like this, where all of a sudden they might shut off their empathy meter and go into this thing, which might cause PTSD later on going down, right? Trauma of all of a sudden being empathetic to non-empathetic, and all of a sudden the comparisons of you trying to strive up, you might have to do sudden rash actions, kill people around you in order to try and stand out, be yourself. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about Prince Canute, by the way. Not just talking about normal people. You might have to, you know, start literally like fighting others in your own sense to go up, and not in a way that a leader should, but in the way that a wild animal that's been locked in a cage for too long does. In a way where you start questioning what it even means for you to be in this position of power. What should have been questioned a long time ago in a more controlled environment than probably what is to come. This is interesting.
私たちがこのような生き物になってしまったのは、遠い祖先が神に背き、罪を犯したせいだと言われています。私たちは楽園から追放されたのです。
But even then, if we were expelled from paradise, why? Because we got knowledge? So we were just to be dumb sheep? You can go on and on and on and on and on and on about 101 things. He questioned what people don't normally question. He brought up the questions but honestly, what a true moment, man. If we're gonna be realistic about it, what a true moment, dude. Like, when do all these philosophical or deep questions come out for a lot of people? When they're inebriated, when they've been drinking. Let's be honest, a lot of people drink and they start questioning like the aspects of reality of themselves or others. And you know, you guys have heard my Uber talks. I should record them and literally like post them up on Discord. Yeah, this is good. Nice move. Sure about that? That looks like a big fall. Hold on. Uber talks, I talk to my Ubers, and like, you know, when I'm like, I get really drunk at a bar or something, and I ask for them back. I give them a big philosophical and psychological talks about what it means to be there and what it means for them to be working at the, like, you know, where they're currently working. And did they see themselves transporting people when they were kids, and what does it mean for them to like do this? How have they grown? And asking all these like wonderful questions to them, and then just seeing the realization moment that like, hey, I have passion I want to go ahead and pursue outside of this, and I can do it. I just need the motivation to take that first step. It's been interesting. It's been interesting. God damn. Okay, Broly.
決着がついたようですね。だが、いけませんな。あの者は正気を失っている。殿下、お逃げになった方が良いでしょう。
Oh, he's done.
正気。正気の人間がこの世のどこにいるのだ。皆同じ。皆同じだ。誰もが等しく愛することを知らぬのであろうが、生の意味を知らず、死の意味を知らず、己の戦う意味さえも知らぬ。
殿下。
Oh fuck.
もういい。もううんざりだ。
Fair. Those eyes though. For me, this means that this is something that he's been pondering in his subconscious for a while now. You know, but can a person change this fast? Probably not. Touch me, Domo. Realistically, not. You don't just go from one moment to another like that. You know, especially with traumatic incidents in the past, it takes a while, and even then, you're still probably gonna relapse after moments like this. Like, you don't just change being a character, you know, from one moment to another. You don't just stop smoking from one day to another because you get side effects from it. You still have symptoms that you're showing. You know, you might start getting an itch to try and smoke some more. Or you might, you know, try and use a substitute or whatever, right? But people don't just automatically make a switch from one moment to another like that. Like, and keep it their entire life, you know? Like, there's relapses and there's stuff like that. What do you do when you do? Well, relapsing is completely normal. It's a part of anything. Behavioral, mental health, all of that, yeah? Like, quite literally, you will relapse in your, like, progression forward. It's completely normal. You might take a step back and then try and take those steps again. Take 3 steps forward, take a step back. That's completely normal. It's a cyclical way that our bodies and our mind is able to go ahead and process certain information, right? For example, someone breaks up with you the first time, that might cause you so much stress, you go into depression and anxiety and this whole thing, right? Second time it happens, yeah, you might feel depressed and anxious, and it might not be to that same extent as the first time, you know? It's just a cyclical way that our body goes through changes and tries to adapt to changes. Because we can't, like, you know, for example, for those of you guys that have ever tried going to the gym, right? And you're like, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Sure, you started off great the first week. The second week, you might have missed a day. The third week, you might have missed 2 days. The fourth week, you might have missed 5 days. The 6th week, you're going once a week. The 7th week, it's every 2 months if you're lucky, you know, and it slowly starts decreasing in a scenario like that, right? And then you might pick it up again, and, like, you might last a little bit longer or something like that. Like, if we don't have, because in some aspects, if where we relapse or it's because of trauma, it's because of anxiety or whatever, we'll go into some cyclical natures of that. Yeah, but that's still not enough to automatically cause a change, right? A change doesn't happen in 30 seconds. A change doesn't happen in a minute. A change might not even happen in a day. A change happens over months, over years, you know? And that's the big aspect in that. You can start the cycle of change, but that does not mean that you'll change your demeanor, your way of doing certain things and whatnot. How to treat relapse when it comes to self-care, life-supporting practices. How so do you mean? Like, if you relapse, daily treatments. Honestly, what you can do is keep a journal. Like the journals that I'm talking about, the emotion-based journal. No, because that's disassociation, Ed. Unless you get dissociative identity disorders, where all of a sudden you come up with a new identity, and then that's trauma-based change, because all of a sudden this is a new identity, right? You, like, physically, a psyche break will not cause you to, like, all of a sudden change personalities, you know? Like, there's a difference in situations like this. A person that changes overnight like this, like, for example, say that a person goes from being a sweet boy to, like, a complete and utter asshole playboy type of person. Yes, the incident, the trauma might have happened in one night, or they got their heart broken or something major happened, but they won't just turn into that automatic playboy overnight. You know, it's going to take them a while to develop their fuckboy needs or whatever to go ahead and get there. Not even a revelation, my friend. You will not be 100% a new person, change that quickly because of a big revelation. Because you will still have aspects of you, psychologically, that hasn't, like, the introspective mind will not be able to work through all of that. You know, there are some people, for example, that like start off, I don't know how to put it, like, who might get a revelation. Well, I mean, I'm not saying like it's like 99% of people, right? Like normal within the bell curve of people aren't just gonna switch like that. That's near impossible if we're gonna talk about it. Because how have you been able to just automatically switch into a new habit, to a new mode, to even like narrative stories and whatnot? If you really want to go that far into that territory, you don't just change your story overnight, you know, because there's still aspects of that old story in there. Does trauma and addiction, like you can stop it from happening too? How so? The way you guys are asking the questions are interesting. So trauma, addiction, it starts off slow, right? And sometimes you won't even know that you're becoming addicted until it's too late. You know? Where, say that you're at a casino and you're gambling, you might put 20 bucks in, whatever, just for laughs. Next thing you know, you might like put another 20 bucks in. Oh, cool, I'm winning and losing, winning and losing, winning and losing. Just like the gacha system, you know, and like Genshin Impact or some of these other things. You're playing, and all of a sudden there's a sunken cost fallacy. I've now put $100 into this account. You might not be stating this out loud, but subconsciously you're like, I just paid 2 games for this free game, and now I have to level up these characters. I have to have fun. Oh, there's a new character that comes out. Oh, I can put 200 bucks more in. This is a game that I'm already spending money in. This is a game that I've already invested myself in, you know. And this can happen to anything. Gundams, light novels, so on and so forth. And with that, I'd question, like, is there a stressor that's triggering you for this? For you to be able to go ahead and, like, use buying or use whatever, addiction, substances, or whatever, as a way of relieving that sort of stress, you know? Like for trauma, you get shocked, but over time you get used to it, or just form trauma from it. You would just form trauma from it, yeah, you know. But philosophically, it's like really great from that. Yeah, philosophically, this might be phenomenal in a lens, but psychologically, if we were to bring this down to realism, like, would this happen overnight like this, or in a sparingly moment? No, they might have an aha moment. Everything clicks, but that's not going to cause everything to change right there and then. You know? Anyway. That's sort of my big aspect of that.
死を得て代わりに失ったもの、最も大切なもの、そしてそれは生ある限り私たちの手には入らぬもの。手には入らぬ。それでも追い求めよというのか。天の父よ。哀れな戦士、最も愛より尊き者、楽園を追われし者よ。
You see, even a scenario like this, right? Let's say that you've never fought someone before in a realistic setting, psychologically, and then I put you up against, say, Brock Lesnar, right? For whatever reason, he's the first one that came to mind. Brock Lesnar walks out in front of you, and you just had this haha moment. Do you think you'd be stepping up to him, and just because of one moment like that, you've never fought before? Throwing that up to you guys. Only a crazy person would do that. Or a really, really experienced fighter or something like that, if you've never had combat in your life. No, thank you, good sir. And the reason being, he's never had a fight. He's never had to, like, in what we've seen, he's afraid of confrontation in general. Yeah, this is more of a philosophical image that's trying to go through this. Yeah. this is more of a philosophical image that's trying to go through this as opposed to like something else, you know. That's why I'm like, there's differences in what like makes a psychological, like something psychologically viable, right, or realistic in some sense, versus what is a metaphor, what works good on the anime. This is beautiful, by the way. I'm not detracting from it in any way, shape, or form. Like, oh, by this I mean like someone that can physically hurt you, Dark Thug, not just like an internal confrontation. I mean, quite literally, like right now, right in front of you, there's this strong professional fighter. Oh, how does your confrontation look like? I'm the Joker, don't worry. But in a scenario like this is one aspect that like I love touching on and I love bringing up, because it's like, okay, clearly there are, like, this is a beautiful scene about like him finding himself and whatnot. Show him a magic trick and run away. Like him finding like his like source, standing his ground, and being able to go ahead and find out what he needs to go ahead and do, which is pretty fucking awesome.
そなたたちの罰の苦しみは死より他に終わらせる術がないのか。我々の生は試され耐え続けるためにのみあるというのか。天の父よ、あなたの与える試練ではこの者の魂は救えぬ。 もはやあなたの救いは求める。あなたが与えてくれぬなら、我々の手でこの地上に再びの楽園を。
My dude's back. Awesome. At least there's a good way of showing resolve.
王子、無事か。 やめんかバカ者。これ以上無益な争いをするな。無益？深手玉、大丈夫か？くそ、なかったぜ。動くな。腹をやられている。ビリバルド。
Happened this fast, yeah.
手当てをしておけ。私は散った馬を捕まえる。
That's some real shit touch me.
そなた、手伝え。
殿下。 私は奇跡を見ました。
黙って手当てにかかれ。おい、王子、どこ行く気だよ。あんたはトルケル軍に引き渡す。でないと俺の仲間が。元よりトルケルのところへ行くつもりだ。連中にそりを借りねば、その怪我人は運べぬ。なんか寝言抜かすんじゃねえぞ。何のためにズタボロになったと思ってんだボケ。 てめえがトルケルに捕まっちまったら意味ねえんだよ。意味だと。そなたたちの戦いのか。こんな戦いに意味などない。だからもう死ぬな。戦士たちよ、私の家臣になれ。戦わねばならぬ時と相手を教えてやろう。
Oh, there you go.
そなたたちの戦いに生と死の意味を与えてやろう。
Coffee and me in the chat, Discord chat going ham on break.
王の務めだ。
That's powerful. That's interesting. That he's changed his resolve to that point almost immediately. Far away in the west, there's a land called Vinland. Without war and slavery, the true king will come from Avalon and save us. We all let the just... Only if things were different, if things would be somewhere, but not here. My thing is... Okay. Do I see Thorkel staying here? Do I see him continuing on in this path? Honestly, I more than likely see either you want me to be realistic, you want me to be like in a realistic sense, what would happen to the character dynamics that are coming here, right? Because now you have someone that's going to start challenging Askeladd in that positions of like standing a boundary of power dynamics and so on and so forth, right? So I think Askeladd is going to have to go, or Thorkel is going to have to go. One or the other is going to have to go at like the hands of a prince or for the prince or something in that regard, because now you have a character that's automatically standing for new resolve. It's sort of the new generation, while Thorkel has, or Thorkel, and not Thorkel, Askeladd has said he's getting old, you know, it's a way to go. You have Thorkel like just in it for fights or whatnot. So you literally have like a reflection of these two characters in, like, you know, Thorfinn and the prince with Thorkel and Askeladd as well, in terms of how the prince is right now, right? So what benefits this most? Yeah, is in retirement state. So what would benefit most in a state like this, which is where you already have a character that like that, you know, and psychologically speaking, what would you do in an environment like this where the only thing that you may be able to go out and say or do is interact with these elements if Askeladd stays alive? I think if anything, what we might see is just an utter crush or defeat of almost everyone. I can see like Thorkel versus Thorfinn round 3, Askeladd versus, you know, Thorkel and Thorfinn round 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Whatever. I can see something like that, but I definitely see that there's going to be some precedence in terms of what it means for this growth to have. At least I hope it explores at least like relapsing and whatnot, because this man was afraid of, like, you know, Thorfinn looking at him the wrong way or talking to him the wrong way. Like, my dude was so afraid that he hid behind his, like, behind Ragnar all the time. Like, you know, Askeladd, yeah, it is. That's why I'm like, this is interesting, and it's bringing up a lot of interesting both psychological and philosophical content to talk about, because it's not every day that you get content like this. It's not, and this is what I like. If I'm genuinely discussing shows like this, or if I'm like racking my brain, don't think like, oh no, it's because he's shitting on it. No, it's actually because my brain is like encapsulating and like trying to process this information and then relate it in a way that, like, you know, makes sense for you guys as well, right? So it's interesting for me to be able to like take some of this and take some of their concepts and then reapply it. For example, back then, this philosophy might have just been necessary to go ahead and live, as opposed to now. Does that philosophy genuinely, you know, if you were to live in a cold, take that to heart psychologically, right? What type of a person would that create? And how would that person interact with others? You know? And that's also why it's sort of like the doctrines, or like, you know, the emphasis of like culture and society keeps changing along with the needs of the time. We're not at war all the time, you know? So therefore, the needs must be met otherwise. In what ways, Dark Doug? You know, and how does that change that people? How do people react to situations like that? Because psychologically, I can give you 101 examples of individuals who might apply philosophies like this, and extreme philosophies like this to their life, and let's just say psychologically, no, from what I've seen, absolutely not. From what I've seen, it's not just being self-aware, it's also the way that they lose. Like, for example, individual, like, you might say, oh yeah, if they take it in moderation, or if they acknowledge it, that there's a difference, right? Versus applying it, like that's how they live their everyday life. If they find a partner, right, and you can't express feelings of love, right, other than trying to go out and get close to death. Again, some of the cases that I've had are DV, and that stands for domestic violence. But is that healthy? And that's the big thing in that, you know. It's not, you know, in today's society, it's not. If something like that's happening, I'm sorry, you're probably gonna go to jail if you're doing like DV or whatnot, right? I can actually see that, because when I was a kid, I look up so much to Leonidas from 300. Yo, okay, but they were badasses, dude. I think the question, why would people who think love... There are people who literally use, I don't know how to put it, use certain religious aspects, doctrines, older philosophies from 1600s down, right? In terms of living, in terms of what it means to go out and live in that environment, so on and so forth. And they take it to the extremes. If love is death, and you say that you're attached to me, why don't we get you closer to love? So on and so forth. You see that in examples of, hey, you know what? Yeah, no, there's actually a lot. There's quite a bit. And people don't talk about it because, hey, you don't want to break the sanctity of your relationship, of your marriage, of anything out there. And if you are going through something like that, please speak up. Like, find a safe place if you're safe enough to do so. You'd be surprised, Dark Doug. If HIPAA wasn't a thing, I would show you 101 aspects, brother, with everything. And now I'm like, bruh. But no, the reason why I bring up these scenarios and concepts like this, the line of thinking is quite controversy among religious people, modern day or previous, because there's a difference again between modern day, say, religious aspects versus previous religious aspects, right? If love is death, then I reject to die and attain your love. That way I will create my own love. Yeah. Reminds me of that video, that site I saw a video of. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, for example, since it was word, because I was going to say, modern day, right, you also have the cultural changes of a lot of, like, for example, individuals that preach differently, but you also still have some extreme sides of both. It could be anything, society, cultural, religion. We're just using religion as an example, right? Well, they'll quite literally latch onto this and say that this is the way that things must be, right? And in situations where people latch onto ideologies and aren't open, say, to like the empathetic structure of nature or so on and so forth, it can get pretty wild. It can get into such a wild stream that, like, you don't even have to take it from me. You can go ask Brady and whatnot about, like, individuals who go into, like, situations on here. Are they more than willing going to happen into a scenario like this where, it might be, we don't even got to go that far. Hold on. Because here's the thing. If we're looking at this, right, this is all you need for DV in any way, shape, or form, right? Making them feel bad, making them feel guilty, which is, so for some religions, that's sort of their go-to. Minimizing, denying, and societies in general, denying and blaming, isolational tactics, intimidation tactics, so on and so forth. Like, what I'm talking about is people that, like, quite literally hinge themselves on an extreme ideal or an extreme whatever will start going into symptoms like this. Why? Because it's going to give them power and control by trying to go ahead and say that that's logic, or that's the way that they need to go ahead and do, which is interesting. But anyway, I think that this is actually a really interesting show overall, and I think it brings up a lot of interesting concepts to talk about that not a lot of shows are comfortable reaching, or not a lot of shows are able to go ahead and, like, discuss, whether you agree with it or not, right? If you were there as after what the priest, if I was there, like, with the priest, I would probably be arguing with the priest back and forth. Because my thing is, like, love at the end of the day is whatever you make it out to be. Because everyone's experience, I'm not talking about philosophy, I'm talking about psychology. Everyone's experience towards love is different, right? And the moment that you drop your, like, in a situation like this, right? In the here and now, I'm not talking about back then, because back then, that is sort of like the mentality he needs to go ahead and start surviving in this world. Sadly enough, hate to say it, but it's true. But nowadays, it's like the moment that you start closing yourself off to, like, number one, you can be loved, you're starting to form cognitive distortions. You're starting to form schemas and issues like that, right? So it would be just the understanding that, one, you can be loved, and two, you can love others, and it's okay to be vulnerable. Love is whatever you make it out to be, because everyone has a different definition as to what love is. And that's sort of the interesting aspect of that. Some people love building Gundams and building, you know, watching older anime from the 80s, and that's their definition of love. You know, for them, that they're willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that because they find aspects of themselves in their creations that they're doing, right? Others find love in spending time with the loved one and genuinely like being in the moment. Others find love by quite literally, you know, having someone to share their experiences with, through sex, through physical means and whatnot. And they will be sad when nobody wants to watch those. You see, Dark Duck, I think we're in an understanding here. But that's sort of the interesting aspect, is we all have a different meaning of love, or sort of what we're looking for to feel love, you know. It'd probably be like an argument back and forth. Even nowadays, for example, there's a lot of philosophy, because philosophy is great for your general understanding of, I guess, like if you're in the introspective process. But a majority of people do have, for example, stuff missing in their Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which makes it harder for them to reach that self-actualization aspect of being able to go ahead and philosophize about certain aspects, you know. And the essence of, by loving something, you set yourself up to suffering down the line. Yeah, but that happens with everything. You'll suffer by walking. You'll suffer by breathing. You'll suffer by seeing too much, being too close to the screen, you know. Does it do it to appease your father, or because you like Alabama? Are you Alabama, Plato? What does that mean about you? Oh man, guys, what an episode.